Okay, good evening. I'm Doug Carlberg. I'm the past chair of SAMA. I'm also the past owner of M2 Global Technology, and the current owner of M2 Technology is Jasmine Shaw is right here in the front seat. Welcome, Jasmine. Thank you for coming. I'm also the president of Carlberg Consulting Group, and part of that is I volunteer my time to do podcasts for the San Antonio Manufacturers Association. And these two gentlemen have been on my podcast, and as a result, with the response we got from the podcast, I was asked if I could get them back for keynote speakers this year, and I was lucky enough to get both of them. I've known both of these gentlemen 30 plus years, I think, back when I was a teenager, but anyway, a few years ago. But with that, I'm going to introduce Billy Taylor, who has written the book, The Winning Link. It's a bestseller. If you've got a copy, you'll be glad to sign it today. And I'll tell you where the booths are at the end. And he's developed a software program with LinkedIn to manage your key performance indicators. You'll hear more about that tomorrow. And he's donated that software to SAMA, and right now we're in the middle of implementing it for a nonprofit. So thank you so much, Billy. So next to me is Gauvin. Gauvin has been a AME, both of these gentlemen have been AME examiners for their excellence program and the Shingo program. And Scott formed a company on respect for people. It's a roadmap and how you can get to the beginning of your organization and how you can pull teams together at the end. And I'm going to have him talk a little bit about that. And he's also got an exciting new module he's adding to it. So with this, I'm going to ask and start off with Billy, because he's a tough act to follow, for Scott, see how he can do. No, I'm going to start off with Scott. I had you nervous there for a minute, didn't I? Scott, can you tell us a little bit about how you got into the lean environment and what led you to create the company you've got today?
Sure, thank you, Doug. And thank you for having me here today. So probably about, I don't want to give away my talk because I'm going to talk a little bit about this, but I spent several years in a manufacturing company trying to implement lean. Had some great success, but I was then sent off to China to do it in Shanghai, and it didn't go as well. I'll give you that story tomorrow. But that led me to re-examine what lean is, and what I realized through that was that I was really only doing half of lean. And so that's what kind of set me down this path of looking at the other side, respect for people, and looking at what was the missing pieces, the missing links of what was missing in that whole deployment, that whole implementation. So I spent the better part of maybe the last almost 15 years researching, talked to hundreds of people that I thought had the practice of respect for people. And what I've eventually came to is I decoded what the practice of respect for people is. And that's what I started pulling together, and that's what the roadmap is. So we eventually took those practices. We found that there were three key principles that were anchored by about 9 behaviors. And so as we started thinking about how do we share that with people, that's what became the Respect for People roadmap. And so I spent the better part of the last 15 years researching and developing what the practice of respect for people is.
So, a matter of fact, if you want to stop by our booth, the AME booth tomorrow at 108, we'll talk a little bit more about it, but we'll also talk a little bit about the Shingle Prize and the 5 modules that are in the Shingle Prize for training. I guess there were 6 now that they're in the Shingle Prize, and one of them leads into respect for people. It's a key part of the Toyota production system. The Shingle Prize, if you're not aware of it, it's named after Shingle that helped develop the Shingle model that Toyota's using today. It's part of Utah State University Huntsman School of Visit, and they offer a prize, a bronze, silver, and the prize. And it's awarded for companies around the world. And Billy and I were on the board for a number of years together. So Billy, I want to go with you next. I learned about you early on when I was doing audits for AME on excellence when you were turning around a number of factories at Goodyear Tire, and you did an amazing job. The companies that I went through to audit, and when you retired, you weren't ready to sit down and watch the grass grow, and you wrote a book, and that led into the software you developed and everything you're doing today, going around the world talking. So tell us a little bit more about that, please.
Well, I spent 30 years with Goodyear, and then when I left, I wrote the book, and I was just gonna ride off in the sunset. But there was key things around doing the turnaround. How do you do the turnaround, and what are the key elements that companies must have? I don't care what type of business you're in. If you're running a nursery, or you're running Coca-Cola, these things are the same, right? When I talk about deliberate clarity, you gotta know what winning is, right? You're gonna hear about it tomorrow. You can't manage a secret. It's impossible. But most companies, when I walk in the door, the first thing I see are secrets. People don't know what the strategy is. People don't know if they're winning or losing, right? And so when I did that, I finished the book, and when it got released, the sales were so high that I went to an AME conference, and the CEO of No Printing Australia was there. And he's basically following me around saying, we're gonna have dinner. Well, we had dinner, I went over, we put the system in No Printing Australia, and we did PPG. A friend of mine called me and said, you're doing a speech, will you come help me? I walked in his building, the same thing. He had all this pretty wallpaper called a strategy. It was very pretty in frames. It was in the break area in the hallway. But when I walked out to the shop floor and I asked the operators, what's the strategy? It was like remember the old Scooby-Doo commercial? No, right? That's what I got. They had no idea. And so when we did that, the next thing I said was deliberate ownership. Most companies don't fail because of bad strategies. They fail because they don't know how to execute. And so you have to connect those owners to your strategy. And when we start doing that, the needle would move within a month, Doug. In my system right now, what I tell a company, I guarantee you'll move the needle in 6 months, or I'll give you money back. And it's these elements. So that's when we built the company LinkedXL. And the software is like an MRI to your business.
Well, thank you, Billy. I got a few more questions for you here in a minute. The other one is, I want to go over Scott next. I've gone through your course. A number of us in this room have gone through your course. It's 12 weeks, and it's a roadmap and a journey, and it's pretty amazing with TED Talks and everything else, and breakout sessions. In the session that I was in, we had people from anywhere from UAE in the Middle East to Germany to Ireland and everything else, and it was really kind of a mix of people, and it was really very interesting. I learned a lot from it. So in relationship to that, Scott, a lot of times people ask, why should I go through this course for respect for people, and what's the bottom line and what's the payback? A lot of people ask.
Well, I'll answer the first one. Why should you go through it? Depends on what your goal is, what your strategy is. If you're trying to execute, it doesn't matter what you're trying to execute. You need to get your people behind the execution. And so what this program does is helps align the people to the strategy by supporting each other, collaborating better, communicating better, solving problems, the right problems, engaging in more productive conflict. And so it's providing the foundational skills, people skills that they need in order to, once they know what the strategy is, once they know what they're supposed to be executing to, they can then come together collectively to do that as a unit as opposed to a bunch of individuals trying to do pieces, and you're hoping that all of those pieces are going to connect together. And so the question people ask is, well, what's the ROI on this? So it costs this much money, when am I going to see my ROI? And that's a tough question to answer, because it depends how you measure it. Now, do we see that turnover reduces? Absolutely. When people are happier, when people feel seen, heard, and valued, they tend to stay. Do we see that projects are executed faster? Absolutely. When people are collaborating, cooperating, working together, solving problems together, the goals get achieved. And so there's not a number I can give you. And Billy's pretty bold saying he'll give you his money back. I don't know if I'm that bold, but if anybody in this room goes through the program, takes your teams through the program, and it doesn't work, I'll give you your money back. So there's your ROI.
Thank you, Scott. At the end of the day, I didn't want my money back. I learned a lot, and I've been in this journey for a lot of different years and ran a lot of different corporations and their operation level. And it was like, wow, I wish I had that 30 years ago. It's a great tool. So Billy, you've got this great book that I recommend everybody buy and read, which really talks about the journey and how you got there. The other part of it is right now is you've got a software that manages your key performance indicators, but to make that thing happen, there's some upfront work that needs to be done, like value stream mapping. You want to talk about what you need to lead into before you load your key performance indicators?
Well, one of the things is we build what's called a strategy on a page. We really simplify it, starting at the top, and we break that strategy all the way down. It means everybody, meaning every function, has that same strategy, but it's connected, and we can show it to you. What we do different is we focus on three things, and what's new to industry is, what's your critical performance indicator? Because everybody wants to measure everything, but if you could only pick two things, and if you don't deliver these two things, you're not going to be in business. So often when I walk into companies, I say, what's the most important indicator? Here's what I get. Safety. Okay. So what else? Quality. Okay. Oh, delivery. Okay. So let me ask you a question. If I'm safe, but I don't make a profit, am I going to be in business? If I have the best quality, but I don't make a profit, am I going to be in business? Be transparent with yourself. Those are not the core principles and things you value, but they must happen. And now, where am I going with this? Most companies focus on KPIs. And you're gonna hear this tomorrow. What we focus on are the KPAs. So think about the key performance actions, not the key performance indicator. Now, the key performance indicator must be visible, but it's the end game. And if you come and see my speech tomorrow, you'll see a visual of it. If I want to lose weight, I'm going to stand on the scale. What is that? A KPI. But if I want to lose weight, I got to do what? I got to walk 2 miles a day. I got to eat 2,000 calories a day or less. And I'm going to work out 5 days a week. So now think about the KPAs. Walk 2 miles. 2,000 calories, 5 days a week. At the end of the month, I look at the scale and I gain 5 pounds. I go back to my KPAs and say, did I walk 2 miles? Yes. Did I eat 2,000 calories? Yes. Did I do it 5 days a week? No. I only did it 2 days a week. So I know exactly what I gotta go fix to move the needle. So that's how we get that type of result so quick. The companies are now focusing on the KPAs. When you look at your plant operating boards, the visual boards, every time I walk in, I get the KPIs. The watercolors, safety, the cues, your watercolor, them, they mean nothing to the people. What we say is, when you do instead of huddle, did you do your safety check? Were there any issues? What did you do about it? Now I'm going to focus on the KPI. So good companies connect the KPAs with the KPIs. and then it shows you how to move the needle.
I'll remember that next time I want to lose another 5 pounds. 'Cause I think I'm missing one in there myself. A little bit, when I kind of go back and I remember when Lean Sigma Six Sigma was very popular, and a lot of the frustration with Six Sigma was you didn't get any results for quite a while, and then they came out with Lean Six Sigma, so you could start seeing the results early on in your quality process down the road. I think one of the things on your program, the program I went through was with a group of people from all over the world. You've had some major success just recently with a company that put their whole team together on it. And with that, you've added another element in there to try to get some bottom line results besides having the team work better together. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure, I'm going to mention it again tomorrow, so you're going to hear this again tomorrow. But one of the companies that we're working with, they came to me and said, hey, we want to do Lean. And I said, okay. They said they want to do it again. I said, okay, tell me about the first time you did it. And they gave me this whole story about what they did a lot of training, ton of training. None of it was visible. None of it stuck. It was an exercise in spending a lot of money and a lot of time, but they had no results. So I said, okay, well, what do you think was the difference? Well, we just can't get people to do this. I said, well, why do you think that they don't want to do it? Well, because they don't understand it. And so we think we just need more training. I said, what you're doing is you're giving them what we call education. Putting information in their head, but it's not translating. And if it doesn't translate, you're not going to see any results. So I said, would you like to do an experiment? And we took the whole company, everybody, we put them through the Respect for People roadmap. Well, why did we do that before we did continuous improvement? Well, what we were noticing was nobody talked to each other, very poor communication. People would pass on defects to each other and they'd see the defect and be like, oh, that guy, he's always doing that. But never say anything to the guy. So the guy didn't even know that he was passing on defects. Very poor communication. Nobody was collaborating. Everybody was an island doing things on their own. A lot of people didn't like each other for a lot of very arbitrary reasons. So there's a lot of conflict, unspoken conflict. So I said, well, let's put everybody through the Respect for People roadmap. Well, within about 8 months, wouldn't you know, productivity was up 26%. We hadn't done any continuous improvement yet. We hadn't changed the process. We hadn't done 5S or Kanban or anything. But what started happening, it happened with the welders. Welders came up to me and said, hey, one of the things that you're teaching us is you want us to get on the same page, but we don't have any time during the day to get on the same page. So can we have a few minutes in the morning so that we can get on the same page with each other? I said, sure. We actually call those huddles, but sure, let me help you structure that. About a month later, they came back and said, hey, so we discovered a problem. We've been doing our huddles, and we realized that when I weld different than Anthony welds. And so, but sometimes we have to pass the work to each other. So if I don't finish this job, he's got to pick it up and do it. But he gets frustrated because he doesn't weld the same way I do, and so he really struggles to be able to finish the job. What we would like to do is have some time where we can decide on one way to do it, so that if he has to pick up where I leave off, it's really easy for him. I said, oh, we call that standard work. And what started to become obvious is that we often start with continuous improvement. Let's do 5S and standard work and Kanban. What started to become obvious is once we got people working better together, the continuous improvement elements emerged. The need organically emerged, and they said, I need help with this problem. And the nice thing is we could say, well, by the way, we've got these lean tools that can actually help solve that problem. A few months later, they came back and said, hey, we're having this problem, like we get too much of this and not enough of that. Kanban. Just recently, they said, hey, this place is a mess. We need to clean it up, 5S. We did not introduce any of the continuous improvement tools. They all emerged organically. So do you think they're gonna have trouble this time? Probably not, right? And so one of the things that we realized, and I think you were alluding to this, is that when organizations now come to us and want to start a lean journey, we start them on a dual track. We start them with respect for people, get the people alignment in place, and then we start introducing continuous improvement, the tools to help them start solving the problems that are emerging organically. And when you start doing those two things together, they start to support each other. And now you don't have that resistance. So that resistance tax that you might, some of you might be feeling in your organizations, you can eliminate that resistance tax. And that tax costs you money in time, execution, quality, people leaving. There's a whole bunch of things that happen when you have that resistance tax. And so that's one of the things that we've been trying to address. And we're seeing the organizations that are putting their teams through the program, we're seeing that tax dissolve away very quickly, within 6 to 8 months typically.
Thank you. You hit it right on the head. Thank you so much. Billy, I'm going to talk a little bit about my situation. When I took over the leadership a couple of years ago as chairman of the San Antonio Manufacturers Association, I asked the question, do we have a strategic plan? And it was like deer in the headlights. And I said, yeah, we have something. And it was done about 15 years ago. And it was more of a marketing plan, not a strategic plan. So we actually hired an outside consultant and walked us through a process. And we've come up with a strategic plan, which we're living with today and executing today. And you can see the results today of the show. Voice of the people, we're giving them the product they want, and we're growing the business. So what it's all about. But with that, we had to do a value stream map because we really didn't know what our value streams, even for a nonprofit. So the same tools that you use in any business can apply to a nonprofit. And a lot of people don't think about that. What's it? So we went through the plan, and then we came up with key performance indicators, but we needed to understand how do we deploy those. So we needed to come up with something called Ocean Connery. It's basically how you take those key performance indicators and put them into action. And I asked the question, we need to train all the section heads or the different committee heads on this thing. And we're lucky enough to have on the board Toyota, and they said, oh, we'll train you on how we do it. So all the team that we had, the committee heads and the key people in the office went through the training. And that's what we're implementing today for a nonprofit. So this is the first nonprofit to use your tool and how we take those key performance indicators. You want to talk a little bit about that upfront process and once you get there and how that thing kind of walks down to the organization, because I know you're going to talk more about that tomorrow, but just give the executive summary real quick.
So in business, value stream mapping is called ownership mapping. Okay? Now, you're going to hear me say this tomorrow over and over again. Write this down. I'm going to say it. So I wanted to trigger your thoughts. So when you go in there again, the formula for winning, when you're talking about strategy, right? It's strategy plus execution equals results. But if it's that simple, why do so many companies fail at it? That's because they don't deploy the strategy. So the formula is strategy plus who owns what in my strategy so I can execute. So good teams, basically when they build their org chart, that's the next level strategy. You're connecting it, you're mapping it out, right? And so when you say that, people know their part, right? Because listen, when two people owns the dog dies. Here's why the dog died. I thought you fed the dog. No, I thought you fed the dog. I thought no one feeds the dog. And when the dog dies, everybody blames. You didn't feed the dog. Well, in our system, I know who fed the dog or who didn't feed the dog. But in the absence of ownership comes blame. If people don't know what they own in your strategy, they're gonna blame you. They're gonna point the finger. You have to break it down to those people and let them know what they own. And one of the things that I will tell you is, and they think it's cliche, but I'm gonna break it down even tomorrow. Ask the expert. The expert is the person doing the job. Right? I remember asking my dad on my first date, hey Dad, how do you treat a woman? Do I open the door? What do I do, pull a chair back? And he acted just like most executives. Let me tell you, son. Right? And I hear this giggling in the back. It's my mom. I'm like, Mom, this is serious. So Dad, how do you treat a woman? I hear the giggling again. I said, Mom. She says, repeat the question. I said, how do you treat a woman? She said, why in the hell are you asking him? He has no idea. Ask me. I'm the woman. I'm the woman. I can tell you. Right? And it isn't about the presents you're going to buy her. It's your presence. She wants to be valued, son. That's how you change the culture. That's how you get buy-in. So when your strategy comes out, people do not resist change when it's done with them. They resist it when it's done to them. See, I've been in some of the most remote places. My first big assignment was in Tyler, Texas. They had never had an African American walk in to be on the leadership team. And in 2 days, they fired the plant manager. My mother says, what are you going to do? I said, pray. I'm going to pray, Mom. Then she says, why would they follow you? She says, they won't. Earn the right, the cultural right and the technical right. Earn the right and let them know what they own, and then they'll follow that. So we do strategy deployment, Doug. We connect the strategy to the person now to the target. And when I talk to you, it's what you own. And you're gonna hear me talk this tomorrow. Be hard on the process so you can lead easy on the people. Most companies don't get that. And that's how we drive change quickly. That's where the 6 months come in. Our last client is one of the biggest companies in the world. And in week 2, they were pushing us out of the way. They saw the ownership. The operators are saying, hey, build our KPA board, not our KPI board. Because when you look at the human behavior, and you're gonna see me do this, but if I walked up to all of you, and I came here, and I'm gonna give you an assignment. Watch your body language. Okay, listen up this row. I need all these darn chairs out here, and I need them out here in 5 minutes, okay? Listen, do you understand what I'm asking you? Okay, I need them out in 5 minutes. Can you get them out in 5 minutes? Look at y'all give me that. Yeah, well, you know what? You're agreeing while you're in front of me, but when I leave the room because you have no ownership, you're gonna blame me. You're gonna talk about me. Watch this as we play it. Hey, how are you doing? This is a great team. Tell you what, I gotta get all these chairs out here in 5 minutes, okay? You're the best I got. Okay, what I need you to tell me is, what do you need from me to get these chairs out of here? I got a lot of people. I can get everybody to grab 2 chairs apiece. Whatever you need from me, I'll give you. Now, what do you want from me, right? I want a steak. I need to eat. They're different, okay? Be very clear. Okay, so now, can y'all help me? See, now you see the difference? She's already yelling at forklift. You're smiling. Like, yeah, we got it. Let's do this. The only thing that happened was I did it with you, not to you. See how quick I changed the culture? And it wasn't about all of that other stuff that people write in books that went to Harvard. I'm not saying that's bad, that went to Yale. But when I went through the school of hard knocks, they were saying, yeah, we agree. Yes, we'll agree. Okay? Thank you.
So you give me 5 minutes to get the chairs out of here.
They've already got it handled.
They got it handled already?
I'm taking them out for steak.
Well, good, I'm gonna join you. Hey, real quick, the beautiful thing about why both of these gentlemen are here, because their programs complement each other, they really do. It's really pretty amazing, because he's talking about ownership, buying in, making it happen, and getting results. And how do you get them to work together to get results? It's with respect for people. The beautiful thing about respect for people, it's a roadmap that you go through over multiple weeks with homework, learning you got to do, and coaching sessions when everybody gets in and you interface. Tell us a little bit more about that process.
Well, let me first say that you don't need to go through the Respect for People roadmap to make this happen. I will share with you tomorrow what all of the elements are. And if you can figure out how to create the system on your own, I would go for it. What the Respect for People roadmap does, though, is it takes the last almost 30 years of struggle and it puts it into a system so that you can just plug and play it. How much do you want me to tell them about it?
You can talk about it tomorrow.
I'll talk a little bit about it tomorrow. Essentially, it is a guided learning experience where we put together teams that we call cohorts, and it's a roadmap. We call it the roadmap because everything is roadmap themed. So if you're going through the modules are called destinations, the micro lessons are called stops on the journey. We get the groups together to have conversations. We call those roadside reflections, where we're reflecting on that destination. And so you're learning from each other as much as you are learning from the micro lessons in the program, as much as you're learning from the small groups that we put you in that are triads. And those are your role play groups or your homework groups. And so the whole thing has been structured around how adults learn. So we hired a behavior science team who helped us design the whole thing so that it aligned to the way that people as adults learn. And so the idea behind it is that we're breaking it down into these micro pieces. And the reason why we do it over an extended period of time, you did it in 12 weeks, some people do it in 15 weeks, sometimes we've got one company that's doing it over 22 weeks. It's very flexible, depending on what your need is. Because everybody's work environment is different, and some people can take more time, some people need to stretch it out more. But the idea is that you're taking these little micro lessons, you're learning one little bit, and then we ask you to go practice it. Then you go practice it, and then you've got a mentor behind the scenes who then you report back to. Hey, this is what I did, this is what I learned, this is what I'm thinking about. And then they are one-on-one coaching you, every individual in the program, one-on-one coaching you to lead you down that road, to lead you down that path to better collaboration, better communication, better problem solving, engaging in conflict in a more productive way. And so by the time you make it down that whole path, that whole journey, and the journey, by the way, never ends, neither does Lean. But by the time you get to the end of that last destination, which we call the destination of better. So if you're familiar with Lean and you've done Kaizen, you know Kaizen is change for the better. So the last destination is about what is the change that you're going to embrace. Now moving forward to adopt and bring this into your organization. And so everyone has accountability partners at the end of the program. Everyone is then identifying what is the one behavior, the one skill, the one improvement that I am personally going to commit to. And I'm going to invite 2 other people, my accountability partners, to hold me accountable to that over the next 12 weeks. Because if you don't do that, well then it was just a very expensive training program. What we're looking for is that there's actual behavior and mindset shifts that happen at the end of the program. And so I'll give you all the parts and pieces tomorrow of what that looks like. And if you can put it together, have at it. If you don't have the time to do that, well, then you can just join the roadmap.